Hello and welcome to Lake Orion Sports Update. I'm your host Joey Tysick, and today we recap the latest with boys and girls lacrosse, girls soccer, softball, and track as the spring regular season ends and playoffs begin. The Lake Orion Dragons varsity baseball team has played well as their season begins to wind down and they look towards playoffs. On May 6th, the Dragons went on the road to take on Rochester Adams. It was a pitching battle as only 5 hits were given up between the two teams. However, Adams would come out on top with a 1-0 victory. Josh Slayton took the loss for the Dragons, allowing 1 run on 5 hits with 5 strikeouts. Brendan Britt had the only hit for Lake Orion, going 1 for 3 at the plate. Just 4 days later, Lake Orion would battle against Rochester Adams again, only this time it would be a doubleheader. Adams took the first game of the series, winning 5-4. The Dragons opened up the scoring brigade in the top of the first, as Matt Williams' sacrifice fly would score 1. Lake Orion went on to score 3 more runs, taking a 4-1 lead before Adams would go off for 4 runs in the bottom of the 6th inning. Lake Orion had 6 hits in the game, led by Brendan Britt and Jared Strauss. Lake Orion bounced back in Game 2, however, winning 4-1. Hunter Seitz got the start and the win for the Dragons, giving up only 1 run on 5 hits in 5 2/3 innings. Kobe Manzo, Matt Williams, Chris Haig, and Josh Slayton all had hits for the Dragons, each driving in a run. 1 day later, on May 11th, Lake Orion would take on Northville at home in a doubleheader. Lake Orion took the first game by a whopping victory of 11-1. The Dragons opened things up in the top of the first, scoring 6 runs. The Dragon offense was led by Ryan McClellan, Hunter Seitz, and Nate O'Connor, who each plated runs. Teddy Hirschfield got the win on the mound, going 3 innings, giving up 1 run on 3 hits with 3 strikeouts. The Dragons would not end up faring so well in Game 2 of the doubleheader after taking a 2-1 lead after 1 inning. Northville would go on to score 4 more runs on 10 hits, as they would rout Lake Orion 5-2, splitting the series. The Dragon offense was led by Haig and Strauss, who each had multiple hits. After having a day off Sunday, the Dragons were back in action Monday, May 13th in a doubleheader against Rochester. Lake Orion took the first game in extra innings, winning 4-3. After a Drew Van Heck double to lead off the inning, Britt was intentionally walked, putting 2 men on. Manzo then singled to left center, plating Van Heck in a walk-off victory. Slayton started the game going 7 strong innings, allowing 3 runs on 4 hits, striking out 10. Ben Ulrich took the win for Lake Orion, going 1 inning of perfect pitching. Game 2 of the series would end up going to extra innings as well, with Lake Orion prevailing. Lake Orion had a 4-1 lead heading into the top of the 7th inning, where Rochester would score 3 to tie the game up. The game was all knotted up at 5, headed into the bottom of the 10th inning. Mitch Howell reached first on an error, leading to a Strauss intentional walk. Rochester tried to pick off play, which resulted in an error, allowing Howell to score safely all the way from second base. The Dragons won by a final score of 6-5. To wrap up the regular season, the Dragons would play a doubleheader against Oxford on May 28th. Lake Orion would sweep the 2 games, winning Game 1 11-0 and taking Game 2 5-1. The Dragons finished the season at 25-11 and winning the OAA Red League Championship. This will be the 3rd consecutive year that they have won or shared the league title and have won 7 out of the last 8 years. Congratulations, Dragons. Lake Orion will play Waterford Kettering on June 1st for their district semifinal matchup. On the women's side of things, Lake Orion softball outscored opponents 39-17 over 4 games. On May 6th, Dragon softball had a doubleheader against Oxford. Lake Orion would rout Oxford in the first game 10-0. Tessa Noose and Peyton Shadiah led the way on offense, going a combined 7 for 7 at the plate with 3 RBIs. Sarah Conley got the win, giving up 1 hit with 5 strikeouts. Game 2 would be a lot of the same, as Lake Orion demolished Oxford 21-2. Abby Maresh and Kim Sosnowski led the way offensively. Maresh went 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and 3 RBIs. Sosnowski went 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and a home run. Natalie Schifford got the win, giving up 2 unearned runs on 6 hits. 2 days later, Lake Orion softball took on Clarkson in a 2-game set. The Dragons took Game 1 by a final score of 7-5. Clarkson jumped out to a 5-2 lead through 4 innings. However, Shadiah's 2-run homer in the top of the 5th brought Lake Orion back within 1 run. Shadiah would come up big again in the top of the 7th, as she would hit a 2 RBI triple to give the Dragons the lead. Sarah Conley would then drive in Shadiah with a base hit. Conley got the win for Lake Orion, giving up 5 runs on 7 hits with 5 strikeouts. Clarkson ended up routing Lake Orion 10-1 in the second game of the doubleheader, winning 10-1. After being tied after 1 inning, Clarkson would go off for 7 runs in the next 2 innings and never look back. Noose went 2 for 2 with a walk and Shadiah 3 for 3. On May 14th, the Lady Dragons would host Avondale at home for a doubleheader. The Dragons would sweep the 2 games, showing they were inspired on senior night. Game 1 was dominated by Sarah Conley as she would pitch 5 innings of scoreless ball with 11 strikeouts. She would also go a perfect 3 for 3 from the plate with a solo home run in the bottom of the 3rd inning. The following weeks, the Dragons would find themselves getting ready for districts with some tough games. First, on May 17th, the Lady Dragons would face off against state-ranked Regina. It would play out just as you could expect for 2 teams in the state rankings, as the Dragons would squeeze by in the battle, winning 6-4. Tessa Noose would lead the charge, going 3 for 4 on the day and stealing a base. Sarah Conley was on the mound for this game as she went 7 innings to earn the victory. Lake Orion would then travel to Swan Valley, where they would end up taking the game 12-5. The following game against Anchor Bay would get rained out, being the 4th rainout of the season for Lake Orion. Lake Orion would then face off against Troy Athens at home. The Dragons would go on to win this game 12-0 as Sarah Conley was incredible on the mound, pitching a no-hitter in the game. On May 28th, the Dragons would play their pre-district game against Waterford Mott. Again, the Dragons would get rolling and never let up as their offense lit up the scoreboard in a 15-0 win. 2 days later, the Dragons would play their final regular season game against Millington, the number 1 ranked team in Division III, for a tough away matchup. The game would be close all the way, but the Dragons come up just short, losing the game 3-5. The Dragons finished out the regular season with a 27-4 record and being the 5th ranked team in the state. Lake Orion looks to continue their season as districts kick off June 1st against Oxford. Good luck, ladies. Lake Orion men's lacrosse team has stuck to their winning ways as of late. The Dragons defeated Detroit Country Day 7-4, May 7th on the road. Sam Perillo led the way on offense, scoring 4 of the team's 7 goals. Dakota Zeller added 2 goals and Kyle Loken with 1. The Dragons then took on division opponent Bloomfield Hills 2 days later. The game was called early due to inclement weather, but Lake Orion didn't need full time anyway, winning 12-2. Perillo put on a scoring display, scoring a season-high 5 goals. Loken added 3, and Hunter McCarty, Willie Hauser, and Joe Cady each had 1. Lake Orion was victorious yet again on May 11th, defeating Vicksburg 14-1. Alex Bruckner and Cady led the way in the offensive charge, each scoring 3 goals. Loken and Zeller added 2 apiece. Jake McLeod and Nolan McGee were in the net, limiting Vicksburg to 1 goal. On May 13th, the Dragons would play an OAA Red matchup against Troy Athens. The Dragons would continue their dominance over the OAA Red as they would go on to win the game 19-1. This game clinched the Red title for the 4th consecutive year for the Dragons. The Dragons also secure an undefeated league record, which is always tough in the OAA Red. After such a strong season, the Dragons would head into regionals as the top seed in their region. On May 20th, they would be matched up against Utica as regional playoffs began. The Dragons seemed to up their game even more for regionals as they went on to dominate Utica with a final score of 21-1. Hunter McCarty led the charge with a season-high 5 goals in the game. Alec Bruckner and Griffin Jacques each had 3 goals. Sam Perillo and Willie Hauser added 2, while Kyle Loken, Max Toohey, Dakota Zeller, Stephen Martin, Justin Nowakowski, and Cade Manzo all added goals. May 23rd, the Dragons would move on to play Lance Cruz North for the second round of regionals. Yet again, Lake Orion would be on a mission as they cruised right past for the 17-4 victory. Kyle Loken, Hunter McCarty, and Max Toohey would give the Dragons 3 goals apiece in the victory. For the final round of regionals, Lake Orion would go up against Utica Eisenhower. Yet again, the Dragons would dominate throughout the game as they would win 16-2, winning the Regional 7 title and move on to the state quarterfinals. They will play Heartland on May 31st. Good luck, Dragons. On the women's side of things, the Dragon women's lacrosse team got things going 5-2 over their last 7 games. The girls outscored opponents 71-68 during this 7-game stretch. The girls would try to use that momentum as they headed into playoffs in the following week. In the first round of regionals, the ladies would face off against Waterford Kettering on May 17th. It would be a back-and-forth affair until eventually the Dragons were able to pull ahead and win the game 13-7. On May 21st, for the second round of the regionals, the ladies would find themselves in the most exciting game of the season as Lake Orion faced off against Lakeland. The game would be goal for goal the entire way through. Up until 6 seconds left in the game, the score would be tied 7-7, before Sydney Mazensky would score the go-ahead goal. pushing the Dragons to a nail-biting victory and keeping their playoff run alive. May 28th, the Dragons would play Walled Lake Central for the regional semifinal. Yet again, Lake Orion would find themselves in another tough game. This game would also be a close game the entire way, but unfortunately, this time the Dragons came up just short, losing 10-13. Another successful season for the ladies lacrosse team in the books. The Lake Orion women's soccer team has been playing well as of late, going 3-0-3 in their last 6 games. The Lady Dragons went on the road May 7th to take on Groves in a very physical defensive game. Lake Orion tied Groves 1-1 after being down 1-0 going into the half. Lake Orion's Melissa Norman tied the game up in the second half on a free kick. With the tie, the Lady Dragons clinched the OAA Blue Division title. The Lady Dragons were back in action May 9th as they took on Summit Academy in a non-conference game. Lake Orion dominated the possession of the ball and were nearly flawless on defense, only allowing 1 goal. Lake Orion ended up scoring 8 goals, 2 by Anna-Marie Fosman, Morgan West, and Grace Cady. Sarah Honshid and Norman each added 1 goal. After a couple days' rest, Lake Orion took on rival Oxford in their final conference game of the year, ending in a 3-3 draw. Fosman scored 2 goals for Lake Orion, who took a 2-1 lead going into the halftime break. However, Oxford would score 2 goals in the second half, taking a 3-2 lead late with only 26 minutes remaining. Freshman Casey Lauer tied things up at 3 with 13 minutes remaining. From there on, it was a defensive battle, with neither side scoring. May 16th was the final home game for the Lady Dragons as they took on Avondale. Lake Orion went on to win 3-1 on goals by Morgan West and Grace Cady. The Lady Dragons finished the season undefeated in division play, going 7-0-1 in the OAA Blue. With one final tournament at hand before the playoffs start, Lake Orion walked out victorious over Boyne City. Senior captain Marissa Sidlowski scored the only goal of the championship game. Senior goalkeeper Lexi Delventhal was phenomenal during the tournament, not giving up a single goal in the 3 games played during the tournament. On May 22nd, the Lady Dragons would face off against state-ranked Stony Creek in their first round of district playoffs. Lake Orion knew the game would be tough, but they battled hard to keep up with the tough Cougar team. Unfortunately, it would not be enough as Stony Creek would win the game 3-0, ending the Dragons' season. The Dragons still finished with an undefeated division record and played very well as the season progressed. It's definitely shown that this soccer team will have things to prove next year. Great season, ladies. Both the men's and women's track teams have had outstanding seasons, and they look to continue that throughout their final invitationals, as well as the OAA Championship meet, regionals, Oakland County, and states. Here's Zach Hepner with the latest.
Thanks, Joey. The girls' team came out victorious at Farmington High School's New Balance Invitational on May 4th, defeating 40 other schools. The Lady Dragons scored a total of 93 points, finishing ahead of both Ann Arbor Skyline and Chippewa Valley. The team had 5 first-place finishes with individual wins from Melissa Simons, who broke the meet record in 100-meter hurdles, and Sophie Novak, who set a new school record in the 1,600-meter run. The boys' team went up against 36 other teams that day with some outstanding competition. The final outcome of the meet came down to the last event, where the Dragons managed to secure the victory. The Dragons earned a total of 61 points, followed by Clinton Township with 54 and Ann Arbor with 52. Thomas Mormon was named Athlete of the Meet after winning the 110-meter high hurdles and the 300-meter hurdles, setting a school record in both. Andrew Nolan won the 1,600-meter run with a new personal best time, while also placing 4th in the 3,200-meter run. The OAA Championship meet took place on May 9th, where the Lady Dragons earned the victory, accumulating 129 points throughout the evening. This left Clarkston in a distant second with 80 points, and Rochester Adam in third with 74 points. The girls were able to pick up wins in 8 different events, with individual winners including senior Madison Eaton in the 100 and 400-meter dashes, sophomore Sophie Novak in the 800 and 1,600-meter runs, senior Melissa Simons in the 100-meter hurdles, and junior Sarah Griffin in the pole vault. In addition to the individual winners, the Lady Dragons also won the 4x100 and 4x800-meter relays. The men's team also came out on top in this meet, continuing their undefeated season. Thomas Mormon won both the high hurdles and the 300-meter hurdles, while also placing 3rd in the high jump and placing 7th in the 1,600-meter relay. Mormon alone scored a total of 26 of the 99 points for the Dragons. Junior Andrew Nolan also scored 18 points by winning the 1,600-meter run and placing 2nd in the 3,200-meter run. The girls continued their successful season on May 17th by capturing their 3rd consecutive regional championship. With a score of 119 points, the girls were able to outpace 14 other teams, including Grand Blanc, who received 84 points, and Clarkston, who scored 67. This meet also determined the state qualifiers, which included seniors Melissa Simons and Madison Eaton, who both qualified in the 300-meter hurdles. The boys' team managed to place second at the regional meet with a final score of 81 points. The Dragons did very well but were outscored by Grand Blanc, who earned a total of 107 points. 5 athletes managed to qualify for states during the meet, including Thomas Mormon, who broke 2 school records in both the high hurdles and the 300-meter hurdles. Finally, the Dragons competed in the Oakland County Championship on May 24th at Clarkston. The men's team managed to place 4th in this event with a total of 44 points. The Dragons had 2 Oakland County champions, those being senior Thomas Mormon in the high hurdles and junior Andrew Nolan in the 3,200-meter run. The Lady Dragons also competed in this event with great performances by junior Sarah Griffin and sophomore Sophie Novak. That's all for the Dragons track and field update. Now back to Joey.
Thanks, Zach. Great season for all the teams. We will keep you updated as the teams continue their playoff pushes and state finals conclude for the track season. That's it for this episode of Lake Orion Sports Update. For even more Lake Orion sports, check out our YouTube channel for our full game coverage of track, lacrosse, girls soccer, softball, and more. Visit youtube.com and search for Orion Neighborhood Television. We'll see you next time.